Hey there, this is Erica from Ever Educating, and a few weeks ago I mentioned that I let students design the whole Unit 3. And so I had that first video of how I actually had my students complete a survey, asking them questions, how I looked at the reports on Kahoot, how I designed the activities going forward based off the results. And I explained how the first few weeks had gone. So here's a wrap up part 2 where I talk about the rest of the unit as well. Now, I have that video linked below so you can see it after. You don't need to watch it in order necessarily. But at the last point that I spoke about, I had my students turn in thesis drafts and we went over them in public feedback form where in class I gave them feedback. And so after that was submitting a body paragraph that had in-text citations so that I can give them feedback, not just on the paragraph itself, but specifically about how they inserted either a paraphrased piece of information or a direct quote. So to make sure that that was inserted smoothly or that they did MLA correctly and all that. So like usual, the two classes were slightly different, which caused me to have to do a bit different as well in class. I was prepped for that, so I always recommend having preparation in case an assignment or activity goes short. You have a backup plan. So in this case, in one class, we had enough body paragraphs to take up almost the whole class period. So at the very end, we just had a bit of discussion and then let them out like 3 minutes early. But in my second class, they only had a few submissions of those body paragraphs, leaving most of the class left for another activity. And so the activity that was to follow on Thursday was the debate. So having students debate each other and practice using research to support their side rather than opinion or just ideas, right? Here's actual research you can use. So what I did in prep for the Tuesday class is I found 5 videos that were very short, so between 2.5 minutes to 6 minutes, that were about a topic and that provided research on that topic. Okay, so for example, different strategies that Miami Beach is using to prevent flooding on their streets, benefits and disadvantages of the keto diet and how the diet actually works, paternity leave, and how that affects the father, mother, if he's married to a woman, and child. So basically short videos, right, that had research included in them. And so for my second class, they started watching those videos. I had partners assigned to certain videos. They knew what they would be debating in it. And so basically we watched them and they broke off into small groups on Zoom or in person to discuss what they would say during their debates. Okay. In my first class, again, we had none of that. But in my second class, we spent most of the class period on it. But because I did that in the second class, I actually realized that it was going to take way too much time to cover everything on Thursday for my first one. Giving them time to meet up with their partner and discuss what they're going to say. It wouldn't have allowed time to actually do the debates in one class period, which is what was necessary because the rest of the class periods have already been booked with other activities. So what I did was on Thursday in my first class, rather than breaking them up into debate partners, I said, you know what, we're gonna watch these videos, all of us, and I'm gonna tell you, okay, video 1, here are the 3 or 4 people who will be assigned to this video. Student A, you're gonna be doing this. Student B, you're gonna be arguing that. Student C, you're gonna be arguing this. And then they watched the video, and then they had a few minutes to think about it, right? We played a second video, people were assigned to that one, and then once that one was finished, the group 1 went. And so we kind of followed that pattern so that rather than debating each other, they just had to come up if they were in class to the microphone or if they were on Zoom, just speak and say, okay, well, one way that they're preventing flooding in Miami Beach is this. Research show that this is how it works. This is beneficial because of this reason, right? And so in that way, they weren't debating each other, but they were each practicing, here's a point to support what I said was a debate topic, and here's the research that supports it. And then I had them focus on, okay, what are the implications of that research connecting to that main point? And so we did that in the first class, and it worked out really well. I think actually worked out better than actually having debates because we're in the hybrid form. And then in my second class, the ones who were already partnered up, they did do the debates, on Zoom and in person. And the ones who were absent on Tuesday, we had one more video that we watched, and then they did the first style of debate where they just kind of shared, here's my topic sentence and here's research to back it up and the implications, rather than debating people back and forth. So that was that week. We had to be flexible in how it worked, which wasn't surprising. But in the body paragraphs, we did have more students actually studying their work, which was great. There's still like overboard citing almost, like here's the author's name, the name of the magazine, and the name of the article, all mention the sentence before you actually quote it or paraphrase it. Like all this isn't necessary, really. So we did discuss that still. But there's definitely more improvement in actually, okay, here's where I got this information, which is what a lot of the students were struggling with. So that was that week. Now, following that was a major drafting week because I wanted to make sure that they had time to draft in an actual class so they could ask me questions immediately when they had them, and also so that they have, 75 minutes or more to focus on just drafting, right? It's not for homework, it's in class. So for that, in the beginning, I still talked about some things that I wanted to help with. So the last activity that we talked about doing was one to help with grammar rules. And so in my last video, I mentioned wanting to gamify this, but I realized that because there's such different levels of how strong they are in their grammar usage and their punctuation usage and all that it wouldn't really be very beneficial to a lot of them. And it would be too high level for others if I try to match everybody at once, right? So what I ended up doing instead is I just created examples of some major grammar rules that they wanted to cover. And then I also found resources that were easy to understand and detailed so that they on their own time can look through for any part that's their weakness in their writing. So a few examples and then resources. We went through them in both classes. And then at the rest of the class period was spent drafting. And that was Tuesday. And I did get some questions while they're drafting, which is great. But for the most part, it was just let's get some work done on this 7-page paper. And then on Thursday, again, I started very briefly talking about the extra credit option, which was to create an abstract. I offer extra credit in every major unit. I'll talk about extra credit in this video below in case you want to see that for some ideas. But basically here, I said, okay, go to the library databases. Most of these academic articles have abstracts. Let's read through a couple. Let me explain how this works. So we did that briefly, and again, the rest of the class period was them drafting and asking me questions if they had any. So this worked out really well. I did have a few screen share to ask me specific questions. I had students who were like, I'm not sure, I'm stuck on page 5, I don't know what else to say, so we can brainstorm ideas together. So that was basically mostly drafting week with a couple lessons in the beginning. And then after that, it was the peer review session. So that was the last day of class. For the unit was just to do the peer review. So like always, I gave them a guide and then they filled it out for their partner. And then, that's the whole unit. So there is a second part where they actually do presentations of the research they did in Unit 3. And so that's during the last day of class. I'm expecting most of them to be on Zoom because it's post-Thanksgiving. And so in that case, they will just have 4 to 5 minutes to present their research using some kind of PowerPoint or Google Slides or infographics, and then have a Q&A session afterward. So I've done that before, just presenting information, so that's something kind of crazy. So I'm not going to mention that, in a third video. I don't think it's really needed. But on the whole, I did get a good amount of response from students as far as, okay, they turned in the information for public feedback. They did take part in the debates that went actually very well. So I think I will do that again, though I might stick to the one-on-one where they just kind of respond with their part of the debate versus assigning them, at least while we're doing hybrid or online teaching. And then having them draft time was obviously good because I got a few of them to ask me questions and I could help them along with their draft. So on the whole, the unit actually wasn't that different from what I've been done before, but I think it's helpful that students knew, okay, well, we're doing this because I decided to do this, right? We told her what we wanted from her. So obviously we'll see if that pans out in the student evals at the end of the semester. But on the whole, it is great if you only teach, let's say, 2 classes and in the same class, or you might pick, if you teach 4 classes, maybe only 1 class to do this approach with, or 2. Because I think the more classes you have, obviously the harder this would be to differentiate between classes depending on what they choose as their favorite activities. But I definitely appreciate the strategy. I'm glad I tried it out at the end of this semester. So if you try the strategy as well, I'd love to hear how it went for you. If you have any questions about the strategy, let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click like to let me know. If you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. I post videos every Tuesday and Friday about teaching tips. Okay? And for this particular video and the one before, the part 1, there is a blog post that goes along with it, which I'll link below as well.